There is a moment before every reaction. A small space. A quiet second where your future is still in your hands. Most people lose that moment without noticing. They speak too fast. They reply too quickly. They defend themselves too loudly. They explain themselves to people who are not even listening. They answer messages while their hands are shaking. They raise their voice before they understand their pain. They act from emotion, then spend hours, days, or even years repairing the damage created in a few uncontrolled seconds. And later, when everything becomes quiet again, they ask themselves the same painful question. Why did I say that? Why did I react like that? Why did I give them so much power over me? The truth is simple, but difficult to accept. Most people are not defeated by their enemies. They are defeated by their reactions. They are defeated by the words they say when anger enters the room. They are defeated by the decisions they make when fear takes control. They are defeated by the messages they send when insecurity feels louder than wisdom. They are defeated by the need to prove themselves in moments where silence would have protected them. A reaction feels powerful in the beginning. It feels like you are standing up for yourself. It feels like you are finally releasing what you have been holding inside. It feels like you are winning because you are speaking loudly, answering quickly, or showing that you are not afraid. But many reactions are not strength. They are emotional leaks. They are moments where your inner world becomes controlled by something outside you. Someone speaks in a certain tone, and your peace disappears. Someone ignores your message, and your self-worth begins to shake. Someone criticizes you, and suddenly your whole mind becomes a courtroom where you must prove your value. Someone disrespects you, and before you can think clearly, your body is already preparing for war. This is how most people live. Not from choice, not from clarity, not from inner strength, but from triggers. A trigger is anything that touches an unhealed place inside you. A word, a look, a delay, a comparison, a rejection, a memory, a silence, a small sign that you are not valued the way you hope to be valued. And when that trigger is touched, the mind does not ask, what is the wisest response? It asks, how do I protect myself right now? So the body reacts. The voice changes. The face tightens. The breath becomes shallow. The heart beats faster. The mind begins to create stories. And suddenly, you are no longer responding to the present moment. You are responding to your past. You are responding to every time you felt ignored. Every time you felt small. Every time you felt powerless. Every time you were misunderstood. Every time someone made you feel like you had to fight to be seen. This is why emotional control is not just about being calm. It is about becoming free. Free from the need to answer every insult. Free from the need to explain yourself to everyone. Free from the need to win every argument. Free from the need to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Free from the pressure to react just because someone tried to disturb your peace. The power of not reacting is not weakness. It is not fear. It is not pretending you do not care. It is the ability to feel everything and still choose your behavior. That is real strength. Anyone can explode. Anyone can shout. Anyone can send a harsh message. Anyone can insult back. Anyone can react when their emotions are loud. But it takes training to stay still when your ego wants to fight. It takes strength to breathe when anger wants to speak. It takes maturity to walk away when your pride wants to prove a point. It takes discipline to say nothing when every part of you wants to explain, defend, attack, or control the situation. The world teaches people to react quickly. Reply fast. Defend fast. Judge fast. Post fast. Attack fast. Decide fast. But the mind does not become powerful by moving fast. The mind becomes powerful by becoming clear. A clear mind does not rush to every emotional battlefield. A clear mind does not hand over its peace to every passing comment. A clear mind does not treat every problem like an emergency. A clear mind understands something most people forget. Not everything deserves your reaction. Some things deserve silence. Some things deserve distance. Some things deserve observation. Some things deserve time. Some things deserve no access to your energy at all. When you react to everything, you become easy to control. Anyone who understands your triggers can move you. They know what to say to make you angry. They know what to withhold to make you anxious. They know what tone to use to make you defensive. They know what memory to mention to make you emotional. They know what weakness to touch to pull you out of your center. But when you learn not to react, you become difficult to control. People can still speak. People can still judge. People can still misunderstand. People can still provoke. But they no longer own the remote control to your nervous system. They no longer decide when your peace begins and ends. They no longer enter your mind without permission. This is where emotional freedom begins. Not when life becomes easy. Not when people treat you perfectly. Not when everyone respects you. Not when nobody challenges you. Emotional freedom begins when you stop needing the outside world to behave properly before you can remain stable inside. Because life will not always be gentle. People will not always speak carefully. Plans will not always move smoothly. Some people will misunderstand you. Some people will test you. Some people will disappoint you. Some people will bring their own pain into your space and call it your problem. If your peace depends on everyone behaving well, your peace will always be fragile. You need a deeper kind of peace. A peace that does not collapse every time someone says something careless. A peace that does not disappear every time plans change. A peace that does not depend on being praised, approved, chosen, or understood. This kind of peace is not found by avoiding emotion. It is built by training your response. The first lesson is this. Between what happens and what you do next, there is a space. That space may be small at first. Maybe only one breath. Maybe only 1 second. Maybe only the tiny moment before your fingers type a reply. But inside that space, your power lives. If you can find that space, you can change your life. Because your life is not only shaped by what happens to you. It is shaped by what you do after it happens. Someone insults you. That is one event. But your reaction creates the next 10 events. You may insult them back. Then the situation grows. Then your mind replays the argument. Then your body carries the stress. Then your focus is broken. Then your sleep is disturbed. Then your entire day becomes controlled by a few words spoken by someone else. One small reaction can open a long chain of consequences. But one pause can break the chain. One breath can protect your dignity. One moment of silence can stop a conversation from becoming a wound. One decision not to reply immediately can save your peace. One choice not to prove yourself can preserve your energy. This is the quiet power of not reacting. It looks small from the outside, but inside it is a revolution. Because every time you pause instead of react, you teach your mind a new truth. You are not a slave to the first emotion that rises. You are not required to obey every thought that appears. You are not obligated to answer every person who provokes you. You are not weak because you choose control. You are not losing because you choose silence. You are building command over yourself. And the person who can command himself is never truly powerless. Most emotional reactions begin with a story. Something happens, and the mind immediately creates meaning around it. Someone does not reply. The mind says they do not care. Someone criticizes your work. The mind says they are attacking me. Someone disagrees with you. The mind says they are disrespecting me. Someone becomes distant. The mind says I am being abandoned. In reality, the event may be simple. A delayed reply. A different opinion. A tired tone. A misunderstanding. A person dealing with their own problems. But the mind does not react to the event alone. It reacts to the meaning it creates. This is why two people can experience the same situation and respond in completely different ways. One person receives criticism and becomes destroyed. Another person receives criticism and becomes curious. One person gets ignored and feels worthless. Another person gets ignored and continues their day peacefully. One person hears a rude comment and starts a war. Another person hears the same comment and understands that not every comment deserves attention. The difference is not the situation. The difference is interpretation. Your emotional life is controlled by the meaning you attach to events. If you believe every delay is rejection, you will live in anxiety. If you believe every disagreement is disrespect, you will live in conflict. If you believe every mistake means failure, you will live in fear. If you believe every criticism means you are not enough, you will live defensively. The mind reacts strongly when it believes something important is under threat. Your image, your value, your control, your security, your identity, your need to be respected, your need to be loved. So before you can control your reactions, you must learn to question your stories. Not every thought deserves trust. Not every emotion tells the truth. Not every fear is a warning. Not every anger is wisdom. Sometimes anger is just wounded pride. Sometimes anxiety is just imagination moving too fast. Sometimes sadness is not proof that life is hopeless, but proof that something inside you needs care. Sometimes the urge to react is not a sign that you should speak. It is a sign that you should pause. The pause is where you separate the event from the story. The event is what happened. The story is what your mind says it means. A person spoke sharply. That is the event. They hate me, they are trying to humiliate me. I must respond right now. That is the story. A person did not invite you. That is the event. I am unwanted, I am not important, I must prove I do not care. That is the story. A person disagreed with your opinion. That is the event. They think I am stupid, I need to win this argument. That is the story. Most reactions are not responses to reality. They are responses to stories. And the stronger the story feels, the faster you react. This is why emotional control begins with one quiet question. What else could this mean? This question creates space. Maybe they are not ignoring you. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they are not attacking you. Maybe they are expressing their view poorly. Maybe they are not trying to disrespect you. Maybe they are emotionally untrained. Maybe the situation is not as urgent as your nervous system believes. Maybe your first interpretation is not the final truth. A mature mind does not believe every first thought. A mature mind gives reality time to become clear. Immature emotion says, react now. Wisdom says, wait, understand first. This does not mean you tolerate everything. It does not mean you accept disrespect. It does not mean you allow people to cross your boundaries. It means you do not let your boundaries be controlled by panic. There is a difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is immediate. A response is chosen. A reaction comes from impulse. A response comes from awareness. A reaction tries to release emotion. A response tries to protect direction. A reaction often creates regret. A response often creates respect. When you react, your emotion drives the vehicle. When you respond, your values hold the steering wheel. This difference can change your relationships, your career, your confidence, and your peace. Because many problems in life do not become serious because of the original situation. They become serious because of the reaction that followed. An argument becomes a broken relationship because someone could not pause. A small mistake becomes a deep shame because someone reacted with self-hatred. A temporary failure becomes a permanent identity because someone reacted by quitting. A rude comment becomes a whole day of suffering because someone allowed it to live rent-free inside their mind. The world may throw sparks, but your reaction decides whether those sparks become fire. Not reacting does not mean the spark never touched you. It means you refuse to pour fuel on it. This is emotional intelligence in its most practical form. To notice the spark, to feel the heat, to understand the urge, and still refuse to burn your own peace down. There will be moments when you feel the reaction rising inside you. Your chest tightens, your jaw locks, your fingers move toward the phone. Your mind begins writing arguments. Your memory starts collecting evidence. Your ego says, say something, do something, show them they cannot treat you like this. In that moment, do not argue with the emotion. Do not pretend it is not there. Simply notice it. Name it quietly. This is anger. This is fear. This is insecurity. This is the need to be seen. This is the need to be right. This is my pride trying to protect me. Naming the emotion gives you distance from it. You are no longer inside the storm without awareness. You are observing the storm. And the moment you can observe an emotion, you are no longer completely controlled by it. You may still feel it, but you are not it. You are the one watching it. This is a powerful shift. Instead of saying, I am angry, you begin to understand. Anger is moving through me. Instead of saying, I am anxious, you understand. Anxiety is visiting my body. Instead of saying, I am broken, you understand. Pain is present right now. This language matters. Because when you become the emotion controls your identity. But when you observe the emotion, you recover your authority. You are not anger. You are experiencing anger. You are not fear. You are experiencing fear. You are not the reaction. You are the awareness behind it. And awareness is the beginning of self-control. Many people try to control emotions by suppressing them. They push the feeling down. They pretend they are fine. They force a smile. They act calm while inside they are boiling. This is not emotional control. This is emotional storage. And stored emotion eventually leaks. It leaks through sarcasm. It leaks through passive aggression. It leaks through sudden anger. It leaks through distance. It leaks through overthinking. It leaks through physical tension. True emotional control is not suppression. It is regulation. Suppression says, I should not feel this. Regulation says, I feel this, but I will not let it control my behavior. Suppression creates pressure. Regulation creates space. Suppression hides the emotion. Regulation guides the emotion. This is why not reacting is not the same as pretending. You are allowed to feel hurt. You are allowed to feel disappointed. You are allowed to feel angry. You are allowed to feel misunderstood. You are allowed to feel the sting of someone's words. But feeling something does not mean you must immediately express it. Emotion is information. It is not instruction. Anger may tell you that a boundary matters. But anger should not always decide your tone. Fear may tell you that something feels uncertain. But fear should not always decide your next move. Sadness may tell you that something needs attention. But sadness should not write the entire story of your life. Your emotions deserve to be heard. But they should not become your master. A powerful person listens to emotions without surrendering control to them. This is a skill, and like every skill, it grows through practice. You do not become calm by waiting for life to stop testing you. You become calm by using every test as training. Every rude comment is training. Every delay is training. Every disagreement is training. Every disappointment is training. Every moment where you want to react becomes a doorway into self-mastery. The question is not, why is this happening to me? The deeper question is, what is this trying to train in me? Maybe patience. Maybe silence. Maybe boundaries. Maybe self-respect. Maybe emotional independence. Maybe the ability to stop explaining yourself. Maybe the ability to stay grounded when you are not understood. Every trigger reveals where your freedom is missing. If a comment can destroy your day, that comment has power over you. If someone's opinion can decide your self-worth, that opinion has power over you. If a delayed reply can disturb your mind for hours, that delay has power over you. If a person's mood can control your mood, that person has power over you. Emotional control is the process of taking that power back. Not by controlling people, but by controlling your access. Your attention is access. Your reaction is access. Your energy is access. Your explanation is access. Your emotional investment is access. Not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of you. Some people should only meet your calm distance. Some people should only meet your silence. Some people should only meet your boundary. Some people should only meet your absence. Not because you hate them, but because you respect your peace. There is a kind of maturity that looks quiet from the outside. It does not announce itself. It does not need applause. It does not need to win every conversation. It simply knows when to stop feeding chaos. It knows when the argument is useless. It knows when the explanation will be wasted. It knows when the person is not ready to understand. It knows when the best answer is no answer. This maturity feels strange at first, because the ego loves reaction. The ego wants the last word. The ego wants to prove innocence. The ego wants to correct every false story. The ego wants to be seen as right, strong, intelligent, loyal, honest, and valuable. But peace often requires you to let people think what they want. This is hard, very hard, because part of you wants to enter every room where your name is being misunderstood and defend yourself. Part of you wants to show everyone the truth. Part of you wants to fix every opinion. Part of you wants to control the story. But a peaceful life requires accepting that you cannot control every version of you that exists in other people's minds. Some people will misunderstand your silence. Some people will misread your kindness. Some people will judge your boundaries. Some people will call your calmness arrogance. Some people will call your distance coldness. Some people will turn your growth into an insult because your change makes them uncomfortable. Let them, not because their opinions are correct, but because your life is too valuable to spend chasing every misunderstanding. The need to be understood by everyone is a hidden form of prison. You cannot live freely while constantly managing how every person sees you. You cannot grow while begging people to interpret you correctly. You cannot protect your peace while explaining your heart to people who are committed to hearing only what fits their story. At some point, you must choose. Do you want to be understood by everyone? Or do you want to be free? Freedom often begins when you stop reacting to the image others create of you. You know your intentions. You know your effort. You know your growth. You know your battles. You know the truth of what you are becoming. That must become enough. Not because feedback does not matter. Not because accountability does not matter. But because not every opinion is feedback. Some opinions are projections. Some criticisms are jealousy wearing the mask of honesty. Some judgments are pain looking for somewhere to land. Some attacks are not about you at all. They are about what your peace reminds someone else they have not built. So before you react, ask yourself, is this truth or is this noise? Truth may be uncomfortable, but it helps you grow. Noise only tries to pull you into emotional disorder. Truth may challenge your behavior. Noise attacks your identity. Truth may come with correction. Noise comes with confusion. Truth gives you something to improve. Noise gives you something to overthink. A strong mind learns the difference. Because if you treat every noise like truth, you will live exhausted. You will be constantly defending, constantly proving, constantly adjusting yourself to people who have not even earned that level of influence. Not reacting means you become selective. Selective with your words. Selective with your attention. Selective with your emotional energy. Selective with who gets a reply. Selective with what gets carried in your mind. This selectiveness is not arrogance. It is self-preservation. You only have so much mental energy in a day. Every unnecessary reaction spends some of it. Every argument spends some of it. Every defensive explanation spends some of it. Every hour of overthinking spends some of it. Every emotional conversation with someone who does not listen spends some of it. And when your energy is gone, you still have to live your life. You still have work to do. You still have goals to build. You still have health to protect. You still have a future that needs focus. You cannot keep giving your best energy to things that do not build your life. This is why emotional control is not just about peace. It is about direction. A person who reacts to everything cannot stay focused for long. Their mind is always being pulled away. One comment pulls them. One message pulls them. One memory pulls them. One fear pulls them. One comparison pulls them. One argument pulls them. They begin the day with goals, but end the day emotionally drained by things that did not deserve their energy. Not reacting protects your direction. It keeps your mind available for what matters. It keeps your energy inside your own life. It keeps your future from being hijacked by temporary emotions. The person who learns to pause becomes dangerous in a quiet way. Not dangerous because they harm others. Dangerous because they are no longer easily moved. They do not explode on command. They do not explain on command. They do not chase on command. They do not panic on command. They do not hand their peace to anyone who knocks on the door of their insecurity. They have built an inner gate, and at that gate, every emotion must wait before entering behavior. This is the beginning of self-command. The hidden cost of reacting is not always visible immediately. Sometimes the moment looks small. A quick reply, a sharp sentence, a raised voice, a sudden decision, a message sent in anger, a promise made from fear, a door closed because pride was louder than patience. At first, it feels like nothing serious happened. You simply said what you felt. You simply defended yourself. You simply answered back. You simply showed that you were hurt. You simply reacted. But reactions have echoes. A reaction does not end when the words leave your mouth. It continues inside the body. The mind replays it. The heart carries it. The nervous system remembers it. The relationship absorbs it. The future changes around it. One uncontrolled reaction can become a memory that follows you longer than the emotion that created it. This is one of the hardest truths about emotional life. Emotions are temporary, but reactions can become permanent. Anger may last for a few minutes, but the words spoken in anger may remain in someone's heart for years. Fear may rise and fall in one night, but the decision made from fear may change the path of your life. Insecurity may attack you for a moment, but the message sent from insecurity may destroy respect that took months to build. This is why emotional control matters. Not because emotions are bad, but because emotions move faster than wisdom. Emotion wants relief now. Wisdom wants peace later. Emotion wants to win the moment. Wisdom wants to protect the future. Emotion says, say it. Wisdom says, will this still feel right tomorrow? Emotion says, prove yourself. Wisdom says, is this person even capable of understanding? Emotion says, react before they think you are weak. Wisdom says, a weak person is controlled by every trigger. A strong person chooses. The cost of reacting is often paid later. You pay with regret. You pay with broken trust. You pay with lost focus. You pay with emotional exhaustion. You pay with the feeling that you betrayed your own standards. Many people do not realize how much of their suffering comes not from what happened, but from what they did while they were hurt. Someone disappointed them, and that was painful. But then they reacted in a way that damaged their own dignity. Someone insulted them, and that was unfair. But then they replied in a way that made them feel smaller afterward. Someone ignored them, and that was uncomfortable. But then they chased, explained, begged, accused, and handed away their self-respect. The original pain was one wound. The reaction became another wound. And often the second wound is deeper because it is self-created. It carries the pain of knowing you moved against yourself. This is why self-control is an act of self-respect. When you do not react, you are not protecting the person who triggered you. You are protecting the person you are becoming. You are protecting your peace. You are protecting your future. You are protecting your dignity from being dragged into a moment that does not deserve the best or worst of you. There is a version of you that you are trying to build. A calmer version. A wiser version. A more disciplined version. A version that does not collapse every time emotions rise. A version that knows how to speak with power instead of pressure. A version that can walk away without needing to win every scene. Every reaction either builds that version or delays it. Every pause strengthens it. Every controlled response teaches your mind that you are changing. The cost of reacting is not only external. It is internal. Every time you react against your own values, your trust in yourself weakens. You begin to think, I always lose control. You begin to believe, I cannot handle my emotions. You begin to carry shame. And shame creates more reactions. Because when a person does not trust themselves emotionally, they become afraid of their own feelings. They fear anger because they think anger will make them destructive. They fear sadness because they think sadness will make them weak. They fear rejection because they think rejection will make them desperate. They fear conflict because they think conflict will make them lose control. So they either explode or avoid. They either react loudly or disappear completely. But neither extreme is freedom. Freedom is not exploding. Freedom is not avoiding. Freedom is being able to stay present without being possessed. To feel anger without becoming cruel. To feel hurt without becoming desperate. To feel fear without becoming paralyzed. To feel disappointment without losing direction. To feel disrespected without losing class. This is the kind of emotional strength most people never train. They train their body. They train their career skills. They train their speech. They train their appearance. They train how others see them. But they do not train the moment between trigger and action. And that moment controls more of life than people realize. A person may be talented, but if they react badly under pressure, they lose opportunities. A person may be intelligent, but if they cannot manage criticism, they stop growing. A person may be loving, but if they react from insecurity, they damage relationships. A person may have big goals, but if every small emotional disturbance steals their focus, they never become consistent. Emotional control is not separate from success. It is part of success. Because life will test you exactly where you are untrained. If you are easily offended, life will send criticism. If you are easily distracted, life will send noise. If you are easily controlled by praise, life will make you dependent on approval. If you are easily controlled by rejection, life will make you chase people who do not value you. If you are easily pulled into arguments, life will surround you with people who love conflict. Not because life hates you, but because untrained parts of you attract repeated lessons. Until you learn the lesson, the pattern keeps returning with different faces. The name changes. The place changes. The situation changes. But the emotional pattern feels familiar. Again, you are explaining yourself to someone who refuses to understand. Again, you are waiting for a reply to feel okay. Again, you are defending your worth to someone who benefits from making you doubt it. Again, you are reacting to disrespect in a way that leaves you feeling ashamed. Again, you are giving your focus to people and moments that do not deserve it. At some point, you stop asking, why does this keep happening? And you begin asking, what part of me keeps responding the same way? That question is not comfortable, but it is powerful, because it brings your attention back to the only place where real change can happen. Inside yourself. You cannot control every person. You cannot control every comment. You cannot control every delay. You cannot control every misunderstanding. You cannot control whether people respect your boundaries immediately. You cannot control whether someone sees your value. But you can control your participation in chaos. You can control how quickly you reply. You can control whether you explain once or explain forever. You can control whether you turn someone's opinion into your identity. You can control whether you make a permanent decision from a temporary emotion. You can control whether you feed the fire or step away from it. This is not easy, but it is possible, and it begins with understanding what reaction really is. A reaction is often an attempt to escape discomfort. You feel anger, so you speak. You feel anxiety, so you check. You feel insecurity, so you ask for reassurance. You feel ignored, so you chase. You feel misunderstood, so you over-explain. You feel disrespected, so you attack. You feel ashamed, so you hide. The reaction is not always about the other person. Sometimes it is your attempt to quickly remove an uncomfortable feeling from your body. But the fastest relief is not always the deepest solution. Reacting may reduce pressure for a moment, but it often creates more pressure later. You send the message, and for 5 seconds you feel relief. Then fear comes. Did I say too much? Did I sound weak? Did I make it worse? Should I delete it? Why did I do that? The reaction promised relief, but it delivered more overthinking. You shout, and for one moment you feel powerful. Then the room becomes silent. Then the relationship feels damaged. Then guilt arrives. The reaction promised strength, but it delivered distance. You defend yourself aggressively, and for a moment you feel protected. Then the conversation becomes heavier. Then the other person becomes more defensive. Then nothing gets solved. The reaction promised control, but it delivered conflict. This is why you must stop trusting the first impulse. The first impulse is often trying to protect your pain, not your future. It is not evil. It is not stupid. It is simply incomplete. It does not see far enough. It does not know the full cost. It does not understand tomorrow. Your impulse only knows the discomfort of now. Your wisdom knows the consequences of later. Emotional mastery is learning to let wisdom speak before impulse acts. This is where silence becomes powerful. Silence is often misunderstood. People think silence means weakness. They think silence means you had nothing to say. They think silence means you accepted defeat. They think silence means the other person won. But silence can be one of the highest forms of control. There is weak silence, and there is powerful silence. Weak silence is when you stay quiet because you are afraid. Powerful silence is when you stay quiet because you are aware. Weak silence comes from helplessness. Powerful silence comes from choice. Weak silence hides the truth. Powerful silence protects energy until the right time. Weak silence builds resentment. Powerful silence creates clarity. The goal is not to become silent because you fear confrontation. The goal is to become silent when speaking would only waste your peace. There are moments when words help, and there are moments when words only feed chaos. A person who is committed to misunderstanding you does not need another explanation. They need your distance. A person who is trying to provoke you does not need your emotional truth. They need your silence. A person who only listens to reply does not need your vulnerability. They need your boundary. A person who repeatedly disrespects your peace does not need another chance to access it. They need your absence. Silence becomes power when it is connected to self-respect. Not the silence of fear. Not the silence of bitterness. Not the silence of passive aggression. But the silence that says, I do not need to enter every storm. This silence is clean. It does not punish. It does not beg. It does not perform. It simply refuses to waste energy where wisdom sees no value. Many arguments survive only because someone keeps feeding them. Every reply adds oxygen. Every defense gives the conflict another breath. Every attempt to prove yourself gives the other person more material to twist. Every emotional explanation becomes another door for misunderstanding. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop feeding the conversation. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have enough self-control to know that more words will not create more understanding. A peaceful person is not someone who always avoids conflict. A peaceful person is someone who knows which conflicts are worth entering. There is a difference between a necessary conversation and an emotional trap. A necessary conversation has a purpose. An emotional trap only wants your reaction. A necessary conversation seeks understanding. An emotional trap seeks control. A necessary conversation may feel uncomfortable, but it can lead to growth. An emotional trap repeats the same circle and leaves you drained. A necessary conversation respects boundaries. An emotional trap punishes you for having them. A necessary conversation can handle calm truth. An emotional trap only uses your truth against you. When you begin to notice this difference, your life becomes quieter. Not because people stop creating noise, but because you stop attending every invitation to chaos. Not every message needs a response. Not every accusation needs a defense. Not every opinion needs correction. Not every person deserves access to your emotional world. Not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation. This is difficult at first because silence can feel like losing, especially if you have spent years defending yourself. If you are often misunderstood, silence feels dangerous. If you are often ignored, silence feels like disappearing. If you are often blamed, silence feels like accepting guilt. If you are often made to feel small, silence feels like letting someone win. But silence is not always surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes silence is dignity. Sometimes silence is the strongest sentence you will ever speak. It says, I am not available for this version of the conversation. It says, my peace is not open for negotiation. It says, I do not need to prove my worth inside your confusion. It says, I choose myself over this argument. There is a kind of power that does not announce itself. It does not raise its voice. It does not fight for attention. It does not chase validation. It simply remains steady. People may not understand it immediately. Some may call it pride. Some may call it coldness. Some may try harder to provoke you because your calmness exposes their lack of control. But you are not responsible for how people interpret your self-control. You are responsible for keeping it. This is where many people fail. They begin calm. Then someone says, why are you silent? Are you scared? And suddenly their ego wakes up. They feel the need to prove they are not afraid. They speak. They react. They enter the trap. A person who is trying to provoke you will often attack your identity. They may call you weak. They may call you fake. They may say you are running away. They may say you think you are better. They may try to make your silence look like guilt. But remember this. A person who needs you to react in order to feel powerful is already depending on your energy. Do not give it cheaply. Your reaction is sometimes the reward they are seeking. Some people do not want resolution. They want evidence that they can still disturb you. They want to see your voice change. They want to see you lose your balance. They want to know they still have access to your emotional buttons. When you do not react, they lose the game they were playing. This does not mean you ignore real problems. It means you stop performing for people who are addicted to your emotional response. You can address issues without giving away control. You can set boundaries without screaming. You can leave without insulting. You can disagree without becoming cruel. You can protect yourself without becoming like the people who hurt you. This is the deeper strength. To not let pain shape you into a person you do not respect. Because that is one of the greatest dangers of reaction. You may become what hurts you. Someone disrespects you, and you become disrespectful. Someone lies to you, and you become manipulative. Someone ignores your feelings, and you begin ignoring theirs. Someone becomes cold, and you become colder. Someone plays games, and you start playing games too. At first, it feels like protection, but slowly it becomes identity. And one day you look at yourself and realize you have copied the behavior that once wounded you. Do not let the pain of others decide your character. Do not let someone's lack of emotional control steal yours. Do not let their chaos teach you to abandon your values. The real victory is not making them feel what they made you feel. The real victory is remaining aligned with who you choose to be. This is why not reacting is not just a technique. It is a decision about identity. Who are you when you are hurt? Who are you when you are misunderstood? Who are you when someone does not respect your effort? Who are you when your ego is challenged? Who are you when nobody is clapping for your growth? Who are you when the old version of you wants to return? Your answer is not found in your thoughts. It is found in your behavior. Anyone can say, I am calm. But calmness is proven when the trigger arrives. Anyone can say, I have self-respect. But self-respect is proven when you refuse to beg for clarity from someone who enjoys confusing you. Anyone can say, I am disciplined. But discipline is proven when emotions are loud and you still choose your standard. Anyone can say, I am healed. But healing is proven when the old wound is touched and you do not react the old way. This is how you know you are growing. Not because nothing triggers you anymore, but because your trigger no longer owns your behavior. The emotion may still appear. The anger may still rise. The anxiety may still whisper. The insecurity may still visit. The memory may still hurt. But there is a difference now. You do not hand it the keys. You notice it. You breathe. You create space. You choose. That choice is the beginning of a new life. Because every time you choose differently, you weaken the old pattern. The old pattern says react. You pause. The old pattern says defend. You observe. The old pattern says chase. You return to yourself. The old pattern says prove your worth. You remember that worth does not need performance. The old pattern says make them understand. You accept that some people are not ready to understand. This is how emotional freedom is built. Not in one grand moment, but in small private victories. The message you did not send. The insult you did not return. The argument you did not continue. The explanation you stopped repeating. The attention you pulled back from someone who only brought confusion. The breath you took before answering. The night you chose sleep over overthinking. The day you chose your goal over your mood. No one may notice these victories, but they are changing you. Quietly, deeply, permanently. Most transformation is invisible before it becomes obvious. People may not see the internal battles you are winning. They may not know how many times you wanted to react and chose peace instead. They may not understand how much strength it took to stay calm in a moment where the old you would have exploded. But you know, and your nervous system knows. Every calm choice teaches your body that safety does not require reaction. Every pause teaches your mind that discomfort can be survived. Every boundary teaches your heart that peace is allowed. Every silence teaches your ego that it does not need to rule your life. Over time, your baseline changes. You become less available to drama, less hungry for approval, less disturbed by opinions, less controlled by emotional pressure, less reactive to people who have not earned your energy. You begin to move differently. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You answer with more intention. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You stop treating every emotional wave like a command. And people feel it. They may not know exactly what changed, but they feel that you are not as easy to pull anymore. They feel that your silence is not weakness. They feel that your calmness is not emptiness. They feel that your energy is no longer open to everyone. This is where respect begins to shift, because people often respect what they cannot easily control. When you are reactive, people can predict you. They know what will make you angry. They know what will make you explain. They know what will make you chase. They know what will make you break your own peace. But when you become calm, you become less predictable to manipulation. You stop moving from the same buttons. You stop giving the same reactions. You stop playing the same role in the same emotional pattern. And that creates a new kind of power. Quiet power. The kind that does not need to dominate. The kind that does not need to threaten. The kind that does not need to announce itself. It simply refuses to be owned by every passing emotion. This quiet power is rare because it requires inner work. It requires you to face the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the problem is not only what people do to you. Sometimes the problem is the access you continue to give them, the attention you keep offering, the emotional explanations you keep repeating, the hope you keep placing in people who repeatedly show you their limits, the reactions you keep giving to situations that have already taught you enough. At some point, the lesson is not about them anymore. It is about whether you will finally choose yourself. Choosing yourself does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like closing the chat without replying. Sometimes it looks like taking a walk before speaking. Sometimes it looks like writing the message and not sending it. Sometimes it looks like saying, "I will talk when I am calm." Sometimes it looks like letting someone be wrong about you. Sometimes it looks like accepting that the conversation will not give you the peace you are searching for. Sometimes it looks like silence. Not empty silence. Not weak silence. But the silence of a person who has stopped giving discounts on their peace. People do not always pull you into reactions directly. Sometimes they do it quietly. A small comment. A cold reply. A strange tone. A delayed response. A joke that does not feel like a joke. A question designed to make you defend yourself. A look that carries judgment without saying a word. And before you realize what is happening, your energy has already moved toward them. Your mind begins to analyze. What did they mean by that? Why did they say it like that? Are they trying to disrespect me? Should I answer? Should I stay silent? Should I explain? Should I show them I am not weak? This is how reaction begins. Not always with anger. Sometimes reaction begins with interpretation. Something happens outside you, and the mind starts building a story around it. Then the body responds to the story as if it is already confirmed. Your heart rate changes. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your attention narrows. Your face becomes serious. Your thoughts become faster. And suddenly, one small moment becomes the center of your entire inner world. This is how people pull you out of yourself. Not by force, but by gaining access to your attention. Attention is the first door. Once someone controls your attention, they can influence your emotion. Once they influence your emotion, they can influence your behavior. And once they influence your behavior, they have moved you without touching you. This is why emotional control begins with attention control. You cannot protect your peace while giving unlimited attention to everything that disturbs it. Many people think their problem is anger. But the deeper problem is where their attention goes. They keep staring at what hurt them. They keep replaying what someone said. They keep checking whether someone replied. They keep imagining what people think. They keep returning mentally to conversations that already ended. They keep giving their inner space to people who are not even present. The body is sitting in one place, but the mind is living inside someone else's words. This is emotional captivity, not because someone locked you in, but because your attention keeps walking back into the same room. When you learn not to react, you are not only controlling your words. You are controlling where your attention lives. You are deciding, this does not deserve to occupy my mind. You are deciding, this person's mood is not my home. You are deciding, this comment is not important enough to carry all day. You are deciding, I will not keep feeding what is starving my peace. This decision is not easy, because the mind loves unfinished emotional business. It wants closure. It wants explanation. It wants justice. It wants the perfect reply. It wants the final word. It wants the other person to understand exactly how wrong they were. But sometimes the mind uses the word closure when it really means control. It wants to control how the other person sees the situation. It wants to control what they think of you. It wants to control whether they regret what they did. It wants to control whether they finally understand your pain. But not everything can be controlled. And the more you try to force emotional closure from people who are not capable of giving it, the more you remain attached to the wound. Sometimes closure is not a conversation. Sometimes closure is a decision. A decision to stop reopening what keeps hurting you. A decision to stop expecting maturity from people who repeatedly show emotional immaturity. A decision to stop explaining your value to someone who benefits from making you doubt it. A decision to stop reacting to the same pattern and calling it hope. The people who trigger you the most often know which part of you is still waiting. Waiting for approval. Waiting for apology. Waiting for understanding. Waiting for reassurance. Waiting for respect. Waiting for them to become different. And because a part of you is waiting, they still have emotional access. This is why you react. Not only because they did something, but because something inside you still wants something from them. You want them to admit the truth. You want them to see your heart. You want them to respect your effort. You want them to choose you clearly. You want them to stop confusing you. You want them to become the version of themselves that would finally make your pain feel worth it. But emotional freedom often begins when you stop waiting for people to become the answer. Some people will never give you the conversation you are looking for. Some people will never apologize in the way your heart imagined. Some people will never understand the damage they caused. Some people will never see your silence as strength. Some people will never treat your boundaries with respect. And still, you must become free. Your healing cannot depend completely on the emotional maturity of the person who hurt you. Your peace cannot wait for someone else to become honest. Your self-respect cannot wait for someone else to recognize your worth. Your future cannot remain paused because someone from your past never learned how to take responsibility. This is where the pause method becomes powerful. The pause method is simple, but it is not easy. It is the practice of placing a conscious gap between the trigger and your behavior. Not a fake pause. Not a pause where you are silently boiling and preparing the perfect attack. Not a pause where you pretend to be calm while your mind is writing a long emotional speech. A real pause. A pause where you return to your body. A pause where you observe the emotion. A pause where you slow down enough to choose. The pause method has 3 movements. Stop. Breathe. Choose. Stop. Do not speak immediately. Do not type immediately. Do not decide immediately. Do not explain immediately. Do not defend immediately. Stop the automatic movement of the old pattern. The old pattern wants speed. It wants to move before awareness arrives. It wants to turn emotion into action instantly. So the first act of power is interruption. You interrupt the old pattern before it becomes behavior. You may need to place the phone down. You may need to leave the room for a moment. You may need to say, "I need time." You may need to close your eyes. You may need to drink water. You may need to step outside. You may need to write the message somewhere else instead of sending it. The goal is to create enough space for wisdom to enter. The second movement is breathe. Not because breathing magically solves every problem, but because breathing tells the body that it is not in immediate danger. When you are triggered, your nervous system often behaves as if survival is under threat. The body prepares to fight. The voice rises. The muscles tighten. The mind becomes narrow. In that state, your intelligence does not disappear, but your access to it becomes limited. You may know better, but you cannot reach that knowing because the body is in defense mode. Breathing creates a bridge back to control. 1 slow breath can soften the body. 3 slow breaths can interrupt the speed of reaction. 5 slow breaths can give your mind enough time to see more clearly. The third movement is choose. After you stop and breathe, ask yourself, what response will I respect later? This question is more powerful than asking, what do I feel like doing? Because what you feel like doing may only serve the emotion. But what you will respect later serves your future. Ask yourself, Will this reply protect my peace or feed the chaos? Am I speaking to create understanding or to release pressure? Is this conversation worth my energy? Do I need to answer now or can this wait? Is my ego trying to win or is my wisdom trying to protect me? What would the calmest version of me do? These questions are not meant to make you passive. They are meant to make you conscious. A conscious response can still be firm. It can still say no. It can still set a boundary. It can still express disappointment. It can still walk away. It can still end the conversation. But it does not come from emotional possession. It comes from self-command. There is a huge difference between saying something because you are triggered and saying something because it is true, necessary, and aligned with your values. The words may even be similar, but the energy is different. A triggered person speaks to discharge emotion. A grounded person speaks to communicate truth. A triggered person wants to hurt back. A grounded person wants to be clear. A triggered person tries to win. A grounded person tries to remain aligned. This is why timing matters. Sometimes your truth is correct, but your timing is destructive. Sometimes what you want to say is valid, but the emotional state you are in will damage how you say it. A mature person understands that truth does not need to be delivered from chaos. You can wait until your nervous system is steady. You can wait until your words are clean. You can wait until you are not speaking from the desire to punish. Waiting does not make your boundary weak. Waiting makes your boundary clear. This is especially important when handling disrespect. Disrespect is one of the strongest triggers because it touches identity. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel unseen. It makes you feel like you must immediately prove that you are not someone to be treated badly. The body wants to respond fast. The ego says, do not let this pass. Pride says, show them. Pain says, make them feel what they made you feel. But wisdom asks a different question. What is the cleanest way to protect my dignity? Sometimes the cleanest way is a calm sentence. Sometimes it is silence. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is a boundary. Sometimes it is leaving the situation entirely. But the cleanest way is rarely uncontrolled anger. Anger may feel powerful, but it often gives the disrespectful person exactly what they wanted. Your loss of control, your emotional exposure, your lowered standard, your participation in their level of behavior. When someone disrespects you, do not rush to match their energy. Matching low energy pulls you down. You do not prove your strength by becoming like the person who lacks control. You prove your strength by refusing to abandon yourself. A calm response to disrespect may sound simple. I do not accept being spoken to that way. We can continue this conversation when it becomes respectful. I am not available for insults. I understand you are upset, but I will not engage with disrespect. I will step away now. These sentences do not need to be loud. They do not need to be dramatic. They do not need to carry emotional weight. Their power comes from clarity. Disrespect often grows when boundaries are unclear. When you laugh it off but secretly feel hurt. When you stay present but feel violated. When you keep explaining instead of setting a limit. When you continue the conversation after the line has already been crossed. A boundary is not only what you say. It is what you do after the line is crossed. If someone keeps disrespecting you and you continue giving them full access, your words lose power. Not because your feelings are invalid, but because your behavior teaches people what they can continue doing. A calm boundary must be followed by action. If the conversation becomes disrespectful, pause it. If the pattern continues, reduce access. If the person refuses to listen, stop explaining. If your peace is repeatedly harmed, create distance. Distance is not always punishment. Sometimes distance is protection. Sometimes distance is the only language a repeated pattern understands. You do not need to hate someone to step away. You do not need to attack someone to protect yourself. You do not need to announce your worth to stop tolerating behavior that dishonors it. You can leave quietly, and sometimes quiet leaving is the loudest form of self-respect. But many people struggle with this because they confuse calmness with weakness. They think, if I do not react, they will think they won. But what does winning mean? Is winning making someone else angry? Is winning proving you can shout louder? Is winning getting the last word? Is winning making your point while losing your peace? Sometimes what the ego calls winning, the soul experiences as loss. You won the argument but lost your calm. You proved your point but lost your focus. You delivered the perfect reply but lost your sleep. You showed them they hurt you, but gave them proof that they still control you. Real winning is different. Real winning is leaving a situation with your dignity intact. Real winning is not needing to destroy yourself to prove a point. Real winning is keeping your standard in a moment where lowering it would have been easy. Real winning is choosing the response your future self will thank you for. When disrespect appears, remember this. Your reaction is not the only way to defend yourself. Your standard defends you. Your boundary defends you. Your distance defends you. Your consistency defends you. Your refusal to participate in chaos defends you. Some people want to fight because a fight gives them access. It puts you on the same emotional floor. It makes both of you look uncontrolled. It turns their disrespect into a shared conflict. But when you stay calm and set a clear boundary, you do not enter the floor they prepared for you. You remain above the reaction. Not above the person. Above the pattern. That distinction matters. Not reacting does not mean you believe you are better than others. It means you are trying to behave better than your impulse. It means you are choosing growth over repetition. It means you are refusing to let someone else's behavior decide your character. This is important because some people will accuse your calmness. They may say you think you are perfect. They may say you are acting superior. They may say you are avoiding the truth. But calmness is not superiority. Calmness is responsibility. You are responsible for your nervous system. You are responsible for your words. You are responsible for your actions. You are responsible for the energy you bring into a situation. You are responsible for whether you continue a cycle or break it. You cannot choose their tone, but you can choose yours. You cannot choose their maturity, but you can choose your standard. You cannot choose whether they try to provoke you, but you can choose whether you accept the invitation. This is how you begin to break emotional patterns. A pattern continues when both people keep playing their roles. One person provokes. The other reacts. One withdraws. The other chases. One criticizes. The other defends. One disrespects. The other explodes. One creates confusion. The other over-explains. The cycle survives because the responses stay the same. But when you change your response, the pattern loses its structure. The old script no longer works. The same words do not produce the same reaction. The same silence does not create the same panic. The same disrespect does not pull you into the same argument. The same emotional bait no longer catches you. This is why your growth may disturb people who benefited from your old reactions. When you stop reacting, some people will not celebrate your peace. They will test it. They will try to bring back the version of you they knew how to control. They may provoke harder. They may become colder. They may accuse you of changing. They may say you are not the same anymore. And they may be right. You are not the same. The old you needed to react to feel powerful. The new you understands that control is power. The old you chased clarity from unclear people. The new you creates clarity through your own boundaries. The old you explained your worth repeatedly. The new you protects your worth through distance from those who cannot see it. The old you thought every emotional battle needed participation. The new you chooses battles based on purpose, not pressure. This transformation can feel lonely at first, because when you stop reacting, you also stop bonding through drama. You stop joining conversations that are built on complaining. You stop feeding emotional chaos. You stop proving loyalty by destroying your peace. You stop confusing intensity with connection. Some relationships may feel different. Some people may not know how to connect with the calmer version of you. Some may miss the reactive version because that version made them feel powerful, needed, or entertained. But growth always changes access. When your inner world changes, your outer world must adjust. Not everyone will adjust with respect. That is okay. Your job is not to remain understandable to people who only recognize the wounded version of you. Your job is to become whole. And wholeness requires a new relationship with triggers. Instead of seeing triggers as proof that you are weak, see them as signals. A trigger points to a place where attention is needed. If rejection triggers you deeply, there may be a part of you that still connects being chosen with being worthy. If criticism triggers you deeply, there may be a part of you that still believes mistakes make you unlovable. If silence triggers you deeply, there may be a part of you that still fears abandonment. If disrespect triggers you deeply, there may be a part of you that still feels it must fight to be valued. The trigger is not the enemy. The trigger is a messenger. But you must learn how to read the message without becoming the reaction. Ask, what is this touching inside me? What am I afraid this means? What old memory does this feel similar to? What need is becoming loud right now? What would I do if I already trusted my worth? These questions turn triggers into teachers. Without awareness, triggers create reactions. With awareness, triggers create growth. This is the deeper use of the pause method. At first, the pause protects you from saying or doing something harmful. Later, the pause helps you understand yourself. You begin to see your patterns. You begin to notice that your strongest reactions often come from your deepest fears. You begin to realize that the person in front of you is not always the whole cause of your emotion. Sometimes they only touched a wound that was already there. This does not excuse their behavior, but it gives you power. Because if the wound is inside you, then healing is possible inside you. You no longer need to wait for every person to act perfectly before you can feel stable. You begin to build stability from within. And once stability grows inside, external situations lose some of their control. A rude tone still may hurt, but it does not ruin your day. A delayed reply still may feel uncomfortable, but it does not make you abandon yourself. A criticism still may sting, but it does not destroy your identity. A conflict still may be difficult, but it does not turn you into someone you do not respect. This is progress. Progress is not never feeling triggered. Progress is recovering faster. Progress is pausing sooner. Progress is speaking cleaner. Progress is walking away earlier. Progress is choosing peace before the damage becomes bigger. The person you are becoming is not emotionless. They are emotionally trained. There is a difference. An emotionless person feels nothing. An emotionally trained person feels deeply, but moves wisely. They do not deny emotion. They direct it. They do not shame themselves for feeling. They take responsibility for behavior. They do not use pain as permission to hurt others. They use pain as information for growth. This is the standard. Not perfection. Practice. There will still be moments where you react. There will still be times when the old pattern wins. There will still be messages you wish you had not sent. There will still be conversations you wish you handled differently. Do not use those moments as proof that you failed. Use them as feedback. After a reaction, do not only ask, "Why am I like this?" That question often creates shame. Ask better questions. What triggered me? What story did my mind create? What did I feel I needed to protect? What could I do next time before reacting? What boundary was missing? What emotion did I ignore until it became too loud? This turns regret into training. Without reflection, regret becomes self-attack. With reflection, regret becomes wisdom. A person who grows is not someone who never makes mistakes. It is someone who studies their mistakes without becoming trapped in shame. Shame says you are the problem. Wisdom says there is a pattern to understand. Shame makes you hide. Wisdom helps you change. Shame repeats the cycle. Wisdom breaks it. So when you react, return. Return to awareness. Return to responsibility. Return to repair if repair is needed. Return to the practice. Do not let one reaction convince you that you are still the old version of yourself. The old version reacted and never reflected. The growing version reacts, learns, and trains. That difference matters. There is a moment in emotional growth where you begin to feel the old reaction rise, but you do not obey it. That moment is powerful. You may feel anger come to the surface, but instead of speaking, you breathe. You may feel insecurity asking you to chase, but instead of chasing, you sit with the discomfort. You may feel pride demanding the last word, but instead of replying, you choose silence. You may feel fear telling you to control the situation, but instead of controlling, you allow space. This is where your identity begins to change. Not because the emotion disappeared, but because your obedience changed. You used to obey every strong feeling. Now you observe it. You used to let discomfort decide your behavior. Now you let values decide. You used to react to feel safe. Now you pause to become free. This freedom is not loud. It does not need to be posted. It does not need to be explained. It is felt in private. In the calm message, you send instead of the angry one. In the conversation, you leave before it becomes disrespectful. In the boundary, you keep even when guilt tries to weaken it. In the silence, you choose when your ego wants performance. In the peace, you protect when chaos knocks again. Slowly, you become less available for emotional manipulation. You notice bait earlier. You feel the hook, but you do not bite. Someone says something designed to provoke you, and you think, this is bait. Someone becomes silent to make you panic, and you think, this is a pattern. Someone insults your character to pull you into defense, and you think, this does not require my performance. Someone misunderstands you loudly, and you think, I can let this pass. This inner recognition is powerful, because manipulation often depends on unconscious reaction. If you do not see the pattern, you become part of it. If you see the pattern, you can step outside it. Awareness gives you exit. And sometimes the exit is not dramatic. Sometimes the exit is simply not replying. Sometimes the exit is saying, I am not discussing this in this tone. Sometimes the exit is delaying your response until you are calm. Sometimes the exit is changing the environment. Sometimes the exit is accepting that the other person is not ready for the conversation you want to have. Acceptance is not approval. You can accept reality without approving of it. You can accept that someone is emotionally immature without approving of their behavior. You can accept that a relationship is unhealthy without approving of the pain it caused. You can accept that someone may never understand you without agreeing with their misunderstanding. Acceptance simply means you stop arguing with what is already being shown. Many reactions come from refusing to accept reality. The person keeps showing inconsistency, but you react because you want consistency. The person keeps showing disrespect, but you react because you want respect. The person keeps avoiding responsibility, but you react because you want accountability. The person keeps creating confusion, but you react because you want clarity. Your reaction comes from fighting the gap between what is happening and what you wish would happen. Peace begins when you stop negotiating with patterns that have already revealed themselves. When someone shows you repeatedly that they cannot communicate with maturity, believe the pattern. When someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, believe the pattern. When someone repeatedly pulls you into confusion, believe the pattern. When someone repeatedly makes you feel smaller, believe the pattern. Believing the pattern does not mean you become bitter. It means you become wise. You stop treating every repeated wound like a new surprise. You stop reacting with shock to behavior that has already been consistent. You stop giving your peace to the hope that this time they will become different. This is not coldness. This is clarity. Clarity reduces reaction. Because confusion fuels emotional chaos. When you are unclear, you keep asking, what does this mean? When you are clear, you ask, what do I need to do? That is a different kind of power. You stop trying to decode every behavior. You stop living as a detective inside relationships. You stop turning every small sign into a mental investigation. You stop needing hidden meanings. You look at the pattern. You listen to the behavior. You trust what is repeated. Then you choose your response. This is how calm people protect themselves. They do not ignore reality. They do not romanticize potential. They do not keep reacting to the same lesson. They see clearly. And because they see clearly, they move calmly. Not every calm person is naturally calm. Some are calm because they have suffered enough from reacting. They have seen what anger can destroy. They have seen what chasing can cost. They have seen how over-explaining can reduce self-respect. They have seen how defending themselves to the wrong people can drain their spirit. They have learned through pain that peace is expensive, and they are no longer willing to spend it cheaply. This is where emotional maturity becomes self-protection. You do not need to become hard. You need to become guarded with your energy. Soft heart, strong boundaries, calm voice, clear standards, open mind, protected peace. That is the balance. Not everyone deserves your softness. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Not everyone deserves repeated access. Not everyone deserves to see the emotional depth of you. Your energy is not a public space. It is a sacred responsibility. When you understand this, you stop reacting to every person who knocks loudly. You begin to ask, should this enter my life? Should this enter my mind? Should this enter my heart? Should this enter my day? Many things happen around you, but not everything should happen inside you. That is the final lesson of this part. The world can be noisy without your mind becoming noisy. People can be careless without your heart becoming careless. Situations can be difficult without your behavior becoming uncontrolled. You can be tested without becoming the old version of yourself. You can be hurt without becoming harmful. You can be disrespected without becoming disrespectful. You can be misunderstood without becoming desperate to prove yourself. This is the quiet power. To remain connected to yourself while life tries to pull you away. To pause when impulse wants speed. To breathe when emotion wants control. To choose when the old pattern wants obedience. And every time you do this, even privately, even silently, even imperfectly, you rise. Not above others. Above your old reactions. Above the version of you that thought peace had to be defended with chaos. Above the pattern that made you give your power away. The next time someone tries to pull you into a reaction, remember, you do not have to enter every storm that invites you. You do not have to prove your strength by losing your calm. You do not have to reply while your emotions are holding the pen. You do not have to turn every trigger into a performance. You can stop. You can breathe. You can choose. And in that choice, you become free. Calm confidence is different from loud confidence. Loud confidence needs attention. Calm confidence needs alignment. Loud confidence tries to prove. Calm confidence simply knows. Loud confidence says, look at me. Calm confidence says, I know who I am even when no one is looking. This is the kind of confidence that grows when you stop reacting. Because every time you control a reaction, you send a message to yourself. I can trust myself. This is one of the deepest forms of confidence. Not confidence in how you look. Not confidence in how people respond to you. Not confidence built on praise, success, or approval. But confidence built on self-command. The ability to say, even when I am triggered, I will not abandon myself. That kind of confidence cannot be easily destroyed, because it is not dependent on the mood of the world. Many people think confidence means never feeling fear. But real confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of self-trust. You may feel fear, but you still know you can choose well. You may feel anger, but you still know you can speak with control. You may feel hurt, but you still know you do not need to beg for value. You may feel pressure, but you still know you do not need to collapse. This is calm confidence. It is built privately. No one sees most of the work. No one sees the times you almost reacted and stopped yourself. No one sees the messages you wrote but did not send. No one sees the arguments you refused to continue. No one sees the nights you chose silence instead of emotional chaos. No one sees the moment where your old self was ready to return, but you chose a new standard. But every one of those moments matters. They become evidence. Evidence that you are not the same person anymore. Evidence that emotions can rise without controlling your life. Evidence that your peace can become stronger than your impulse. Evidence that you can stand inside discomfort without running toward reaction. And confidence is built from evidence, not fantasy, not affirmations alone, not pretending. Evidence. Every time you act with control, you give your mind proof. Proof that you can handle pressure. Proof that you can survive discomfort. Proof that you can stay loyal to your values. Proof that you can feel deeply without behaving destructively. This proof becomes identity. At first you say, I am trying to become calm. Later you say, I am learning to stay calm. Then one day, quietly, without forcing it, you realize, I am a calm person now. Not because nothing bothers you, but because being bothered no longer decides who you become. That is transformation. But this transformation requires daily training. You cannot wait for a major crisis to practice emotional control. You practice in small moments. The small moments are the gym. The delayed message. The traffic. The rude tone. The unexpected problem. The criticism. The small disappointment. The plan that changes. The person who misunderstands you. The urge to check again. The urge to explain again. The urge to react again. These moments are not interruptions to your growth. They are the training ground. Every day gives you chances to practice the pause. And the more you practice when the trigger is small, the stronger you become when the trigger is big. A person who cannot control small reactions will struggle with big reactions. If a small comment destroys your mood, a major conflict will control your entire mind. If a delayed reply makes you anxious, a serious rejection will shake your identity. If a minor mistake makes you hate yourself, a real failure will make you want to quit. So do not ignore small triggers. Small triggers reveal big patterns. They show you where your inner stability is still weak. They show you what still has access to your peace. They show you where you are still asking the outside world for permission to feel okay. Daily emotional control begins with observation. For one day, do not try to change everything. Simply watch. Watch what irritates you. Watch what makes you defensive. Watch what makes you anxious. Watch what makes you want to prove yourself. Watch what makes you want to chase. Watch what makes you want to withdraw. Watch what makes your body tighten. Watch when your tone changes. Watch when your breathing becomes shallow. Watch when your mind starts creating stories. Do not judge it immediately. Just observe. Observation creates awareness. And awareness creates choice. Without awareness, you are living on automatic patterns. Something happens, and the reaction begins before you even realize you had a choice. But when you observe yourself, you begin to see the early signs. You notice the reaction while it is still forming. You catch the spark before it becomes fire. You hear the first sentence your ego wants to say. You feel the first movement of your hand toward the phone. You notice the first wave of heat in your chest. This early noticing is powerful. Because the earlier you catch a reaction, the easier it is to redirect. A reaction is like a train. When it is just beginning to move, it is easier to stop. But once it has gained speed, it becomes much harder. So do not wait until you are shouting to practice control. Do not wait until you have already sent the message. Do not wait until the argument has become painful. Train yourself to notice the first movement, the first tension, the first story, the first impulse, the first urge to defend. That is where your power begins. One simple daily practice is the 3-breath rule. Before answering anything emotionally charged, take 3 slow breaths. Not one rushed breath. Not a dramatic breath to show someone you are annoyed. 3 quiet, slow breaths. The first breath brings you back to the body. The second breath slows the emotional wave. The third breath gives wisdom a chance to enter. Then respond, or decide not to respond. This practice may look too simple, but simple things become powerful when repeated. Your life changes not only through big decisions, but through repeated small disciplines. The discipline to pause. The discipline to breathe. The discipline to wait before replying. The discipline to not check when checking is only feeding anxiety. The discipline to speak clearly instead of emotionally. The discipline to leave a conversation when respect is gone. The discipline to not return to what repeatedly hurts you. This is emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is one of the strongest forms of self-love, because it protects you from your own temporary states. There will be moments when your emotions will not care about your future. Anger will not care about your reputation. Insecurity will not care about your dignity. Fear will not care about your growth. Pride will not care about your peace. But discipline cares. Discipline remembers what emotion forgets. Discipline says, do not destroy what you are building because of what you are feeling. This sentence can save you. Do not destroy what you are building because of what you are feeling. Do not destroy trust because of one wave of anger. Do not destroy self-respect because of one moment of loneliness. Do not destroy progress because of one day of weakness. Do not destroy peace because of one person's behavior. Do not destroy your future because of a temporary emotional storm. A feeling can be real and still not be a good leader. This is important. Your feelings are real. Your pain is real. Your anger is real. Your fear is real. Your disappointment is real. But real does not always mean reliable. A feeling can be real and still be incomplete. A feeling can be intense and still be temporary. A feeling can be loud and still be wrong about what you should do next. So respect your feelings, but do not worship them. Listen to them, but do not obey them blindly. Give them space, but do not give them the steering wheel. This is the balance of emotional maturity. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming guided. Another daily practice is delayed response. When something triggers you, delay your response by 10 minutes. If it is more serious, delay it by 1 hour. If it is deeply emotional, delay it until tomorrow. This does not mean you are avoiding the issue. It means you are refusing to let the most unstable version of you speak for the whole of you. A delayed response often becomes a wiser response. Many messages lose their urgency after 10 minutes. Many arguments lose their power after 1 hour. Many emotional decisions look different after sleep. Time reveals what emotion hides. When you delay, you allow the nervous system to settle. You allow the story to become clearer. You allow the first impulse to lose its command. Then you can ask, does this still need a response? What response would be clean? What is the purpose of speaking? What boundary is needed? What outcome do I actually want? These questions turn reaction into response. Some conversations do need to happen. Not reacting does not mean you avoid all difficult conversations. Avoidance is not peace. Avoidance is fear wearing the mask of calm. A person who never reacts but also never communicates may appear peaceful on the outside, but inside they may be collecting resentment. That is not the goal. The goal is to communicate from steadiness. To speak when your words are guided by clarity, not explosion. To express hurt without attacking. To set boundaries without cruelty. To disagree without disrespect. To leave without drama. To tell the truth without using truth as a weapon. This is emotional strength. The strongest people are not the ones who never speak. They are the ones who know when to speak, how to speak, and when silence is wiser. There is a difference between controlled silence and fearful silence. Controlled silence says, this is not the right time. Fearful silence says, I am afraid to say what I feel. Controlled silence creates space. Fearful silence creates resentment. Controlled silence protects the conversation. Fearful silence avoids the conversation. So ask yourself honestly, am I silent because I am choosing peace or because I am afraid? Both can look the same from the outside, but inside they feel different. Peaceful silence feels grounded. Fearful silence feels tight. Peaceful silence has dignity. Fearful silence has self-abandonment. Peaceful silence can speak later if needed. Fearful silence keeps swallowing pain. Your goal is not to become quiet in every situation. Your goal is to become honest without becoming reactive. When something needs to be said, say it cleanly. Clean words are simple. They do not attack. They do not exaggerate. They do not bring old, unrelated wounds into the current moment. They do not insult. They do not perform. They communicate. For example, when that happened, I felt disrespected. I need this conversation to stay respectful. I am willing to talk, but not if we are attacking each other. I need time before I respond. I do not want to continue this pattern. This is not healthy for me. I am choosing distance because my peace matters. These sentences are calm, but they are not weak. They are clear. Clarity is stronger than emotional volume. Many people raise their voice because their boundary is unclear. They use anger to create the force that their words do not have. But when your boundary is clear, you do not need to shout. You know what you mean. You know what you will do. You know where the line is. A boundary spoken calmly and followed consistently is more powerful than anger repeated many times. This is another part of becoming unshakable. Consistency. People trust what you consistently practice. You also trust yourself through consistency. If you say you will not tolerate disrespect, but you keep staying in disrespectful conversations, your mind notices. If you say you are choosing peace, but you keep returning to chaos, your mind notices. If you say you have changed, but you keep obeying the same old triggers, your mind notices. Self-trust is built when your behavior matches your words. This does not mean you must be perfect. It means you must be honest. When you fail, return. When you react, reflect. When you break your own boundary, rebuild it. When you lose your calm, learn from it. Do not turn one mistake into an identity. Do not say, I am still the same. Say, this is where I still need training. That shift matters, because shame freezes growth. Training continues it. Every emotionally controlled person was once emotionally untrained in some area. No one is born with perfect calm. People become calm by meeting their storms honestly. They become calm by seeing the cost of reaction. They become calm by practicing silence when their ego wants noise. They become calm by learning the body's signals. They become calm by choosing long-term peace over short-term release again and again. So be patient with the process. You are not trying to become a stone. You are trying to become steady. Steady does not mean nothing touches you. Steady means you return to yourself faster. A tree moves in the wind, but it does not become the wind. You may feel the emotion, but you do not have to become the emotion. You may feel anger, but you do not have to become destruction. You may feel fear, but you do not have to become avoidance. You may feel sadness, but you do not have to become hopelessness. You may feel rejection, but you do not have to become desperation. You are allowed to feel. You are also allowed to choose. That is the foundation of inner freedom. Another powerful practice is asking your future self. Before reacting, imagine the version of you 1 year from now. The calmer version. The stronger version. The version who has already learned this lesson. The version who no longer needs to prove themselves in every emotional moment. Ask that version, what should I do right now? Not what the hurt version wants. Not what the angry version wants. Not what the insecure version wants. Ask the wiser version. The answer may be simple. Wait. Do not send it. Speak calmly. Leave the room. Protect your boundary. Stop explaining. Choose sleep. Focus on your work. Let them think what they want. The future self often speaks quietly, but it speaks with wisdom. Your emotions speak loudly because they want immediate attention. Your future self speaks quietly because it is not trying to panic you. You must learn to listen to the quiet voice. Most regret comes from obeying the loudest part of yourself instead of the wisest part. The loudest part says, react. The wisest part says, pause. The loudest part says, make them feel it. The wisest part says, do not become what hurt you. The loudest part says, you need the last word. The wisest part says, peace is better than performance. The loudest part says, chase clarity. The wisest part says, clarity is already in the pattern. The loudest part says, prove your worth. The wisest part says, worth does not need begging. This is the inner conversation that decides your life. Not just the outer conversations you have with people. The conversations inside you matter more. Because before you react outwardly, you obey something inwardly. You obey fear, or you obey wisdom. You obey anger, or you obey discipline. You obey insecurity, or you obey self-respect. You obey pride, or you obey peace. Every reaction has an inner authority behind it. The question is, who is leading you? When your emotions are untrained, the loudest feeling leads. When your mind is trained, your values lead. Values are the anchor. Without values, emotions decide everything. With values, emotions are allowed to exist, but they are not allowed to rule. So define your values clearly. Maybe your value is peace. Maybe it is dignity. Maybe it is honesty. Maybe it is self-respect. Maybe it is patience. Maybe it is growth. Maybe it is emotional maturity. Then when a trigger appears, ask, what does my value require right now? Not what does my anger want? Not what does my ego demand? Not what will make me feel powerful for the next 5 minutes. Ask what your value requires. If your value is peace, the answer may be silence. If your value is honesty, the answer may be a calm conversation. If your value is dignity, the answer may be walking away. If your value is self-respect, the answer may be no longer chasing. If your value is growth, the answer may be listening without becoming defensive. Values simplify choices. When you do not know who you are, every trigger becomes confusing. When you know your values, the path becomes clearer. You may still feel emotional, but you know the direction. That direction protects you. This is why emotionally strong people do not need every situation to be easy. They have an inner compass. The outside may be messy, but the inside has direction. They may not control every event, but they know the standard they want to live by. And this standard becomes stronger with repetition. Day by day, pause by pause, choice by choice, you become unshakable not because life stops shaking you. You become unshakable because you stop collapsing every time life moves. You develop roots, inner roots, roots of self-awareness, roots of discipline, roots of self-respect, roots of patience, roots of emotional honesty, roots of boundaries, roots of silence, roots of chosen response. A person with roots may bend, but they do not easily break. They may feel pain, but they do not lose themselves inside it. They may face disrespect, but they do not become disrespectful. They may face rejection, but they do not reject themselves. They may face uncertainty, but they do not let fear become their master. This is the quiet victory of emotional control. You stop living as a reaction to the world. You begin living as an expression of your values. That is a completely different life. In the old life, people decide your mood. In the new life, you protect your state. In the old life, triggers decide your behavior. In the new life, awareness creates space. In the old life, you chase every misunderstanding. In the new life, you let some things remain outside your energy. In the old life, you think silence means losing. In the new life, you understand silence can be command. In the old life, you react to feel powerful. In the new life, you choose control because you are powerful. This shift does not happen overnight, but it can begin today. The next time you are triggered, do not aim for perfection. Aim for one breath, one pause, one moment of awareness, 1 second where you remember that you have a choice. That 1 second matters, because 1 second can interrupt a pattern that has controlled you for years. 1 second can stop a message. 1 second can soften a tone. 1 second can prevent an argument. 1 second can protect a relationship. 1 second can preserve self-respect. 1 second can keep you aligned with who you are becoming. Never underestimate the power of one conscious second. That second is the doorway. And through that doorway, a new version of you begins to enter. A version who does not need to react to feel seen. A version who does not need to explain to feel valid. A version who does not need to win every argument to feel strong. A version who does not confuse emotional intensity with truth. A version who can sit with discomfort without turning it into damage. A version who can feel deeply and still move wisely. This version is already inside you. It is not created from nothing. It is revealed through practice. Every pause reveals it. Every calm response reveals it. Every boundary reveals it. Every moment of silence, chosen with self-respect, reveals it. You are not trying to become someone else. You are returning to the part of you that existed before fear trained you to react. Before pain trained you to defend. Before rejection trained you to chase. Before disrespect trained you to fight for value. Before chaos became familiar. There is a steadier self underneath the reactions. A self that does not need to be pulled by every emotion. A self that can listen, breathe, choose, and move with clarity. That self becomes stronger every time you choose not to abandon it. So train daily. Not dramatically. Quietly. When the phone lights up and your heart jumps, pause. When someone speaks with a tone that touches your pride, breathe. When your mind creates a painful story, question it. When your ego wants the final word, remember your peace. When your hand wants to send the message, wait. When your insecurity wants reassurance from someone unreliable, return to yourself. When your anger wants to punish, choose your standard. When your fear wants control, choose trust in your own stability. These are the repetitions. This is the practice. This is how calm becomes natural. Not because the world becomes calm, but because you become trained. The strongest people are not always the ones with the hardest voices. Sometimes they are the ones who can sit quietly while their entire nervous system is asking them to react. Sometimes they are the ones who choose a calm boundary instead of an emotional explosion. Sometimes they are the ones who walk away with tears in their eyes because they know staying would cost their peace. Sometimes they are the ones who let people misunderstand them because explaining would only reopen the wound. Sometimes they are the ones who choose sleep, silence, discipline, and distance instead of drama. This strength is not always visible, but it changes everything. It changes how you speak. It changes who you allow close. It changes how quickly you recover. It changes how much energy you keep for your own life. It changes the way people treat you because your access is no longer unlimited. It changes the way you see yourself because you are no longer constantly apologizing to yourself for reactions you regret. There is deep peace in knowing you can trust yourself. Trust yourself to pause. Trust yourself to choose. Trust yourself to walk away. Trust yourself to speak when necessary. Trust yourself to stay silent when wisdom asks for silence. Trust yourself to protect your dignity. Trust yourself to not give your power away so easily. This self-trust is the foundation of being unshakable. Not unfeeling. Not untouchable. Not perfect. Unshakable means you may feel the storm, but you do not surrender your center to it. You may be tested, but you do not become the test. You may be hurt, but you do not let hurt become your identity. You may be misunderstood, but you do not lose yourself trying to correct every mind. You may be provoked, but you do not become a puppet of provocation. You remain. You breathe. You choose. And that choice becomes your freedom. There comes a point in life where you realize peace is not something you find by controlling everything around you. Peace is something you protect by learning what deserves your energy and what does not. For a long time, you may have believed that calmness would come when people finally understood you. When they finally apologized. When they finally changed. When they finally respected your boundaries. When they finally saw your value. When they finally stopped triggering the wounded parts of you. But waiting for the world to become gentle before you become steady is a dangerous way to live. Because the world will not always be gentle. Some people will speak without thinking. Some people will judge without understanding. Some people will take your silence personally. Some people will test your boundaries. Some people will disappoint you, not because you deserve it, but because they are limited by their own immaturity. If your peace depends on their maturity, then your peace will always remain in their hands. And anything that lives in someone else's hands can be taken from you at any moment. This is why the power of not reacting is so important. It brings your peace back home, back into your own body, back into your own choices, back into your own breath, back into the space between what happens and what you do next. That space is small, but it is sacred. Inside that space, you decide whether the old version of you returns or the new version of you rises. The old version reacts because it wants to be seen. The new version pauses because it already sees itself. The old version explains again and again because it fears being misunderstood. The new version knows that peace is sometimes more valuable than being correctly interpreted. The old version chases clarity from people who create confusion. The new version becomes clear by watching patterns. The old version fights every battle because it thinks silence means weakness. The new version chooses battles with wisdom because it understands that not every conflict deserves participation. The old version tries to control other people's opinions. The new version controls access to its own energy. This is growth, not becoming emotionless, not becoming cold, not becoming distant from life, but becoming more loyal to your inner peace than to your temporary impulses. A reactive life is exhausting because everything becomes personal. A tone becomes personal. A delay becomes personal. A disagreement becomes personal. A criticism becomes personal. A silence becomes personal. A look becomes personal. And when everything feels personal, the mind never rests. It is always defending, always explaining, always preparing, always interpreting, always searching for danger in every small detail. But when you begin to master your reactions, you stop turning every moment into a threat. You stop assuming every delay means rejection. You stop assuming every disagreement means disrespect. You stop assuming every criticism means failure. You stop assuming every silence means abandonment. You stop letting your fear write the story before reality has spoken clearly. This does not make you careless. It makes you clearer. You still notice. You still feel. You still protect yourself. But you no longer allow your first emotional interpretation to become the final truth. That is maturity. To feel the first wave and still wait for deeper clarity. To hear the first thought and still question it. To feel anger and still ask what response will protect your dignity. To feel hurt and still refuse to turn pain into damage. To feel fear and still choose not to let fear become your identity. The strongest people are not the ones who never feel anything. They are the ones who have learned how to remain responsible while feeling everything. They can be hurt without becoming harmful. They can be angry without becoming cruel. They can be disappointed without becoming destructive. They can be misunderstood without becoming desperate. They can be provoked without becoming controlled. This is the real power. Not power over others. Power over yourself. Because the person who has power over himself cannot be easily owned by the world. You may still be tested, but you will not be moved the same way. You may still be criticized, but you will not collapse into self-doubt every time. You may still be disrespected, but you will not need to destroy your peace to prove your worth. You may still be ignored, but you will not abandon yourself just to be chosen. You may still feel the storm, but the storm will no longer become your identity. This is what it means to become unshakable. Unshakable does not mean nothing can touch you. It means nothing can easily take you away from yourself. It means your center is no longer available to every passing emotion. It means you can feel pressure without obeying panic. It means you can feel the pull of reaction and still choose a higher standard. It means your peace is no longer cheap. There is a quiet dignity in a person who does not react to everything. They do not need to answer every insult. They do not need to correct every opinion. They do not need to prove every truth. They do not need to chase every person. They do not need to attend every emotional battle. They move with patience because they understand the cost of losing themselves. They speak with intention because they understand words cannot always be taken back. They stay silent when silence is wiser because they understand that not every moment deserves access to their voice. They walk away when the environment dishonors their growth because they understand that staying in chaos is not strength. This kind of person is not weak. This kind of person is free. Free from the need to be understood by everyone. Free from the need to win every conversation. Free from the need to prove strength through anger. Free from the need to turn pain into performance. Free from the need to give everyone access to their emotional world. Freedom begins when your reaction is no longer automatic. Freedom begins when you can say, I feel this, but I will choose differently. Freedom begins when you understand that a trigger is not a command. It is an invitation, and you are allowed to decline. You can decline the invitation to argue. You can decline the invitation to overthink. You can decline the invitation to chase. You can decline the invitation to explain yourself again. You can decline the invitation to become the old version of yourself. Every trigger invites you somewhere. Some triggers invite you back into anger. Some invite you back into insecurity. Some invite you back into fear. Some invite you back into pride. Some invite you back into emotional dependence. Some invite you back into chaos you once called familiar. But just because an invitation arrives does not mean you must enter. You can stand at the door of the old pattern and say, not this time. Not this time will I send the message from pain. Not this time will I give my peace away for a temporary reaction. Not this time will I explain my worth to someone who keeps pretending not to see it. Not this time will I let one person's behavior destroy my entire day. Not this time will I become someone I do not respect just because someone else lost control. Not this time. Those 3 words can become a turning point, because change often begins with refusing to repeat one old reaction. Just one moment where you choose silence instead of defense. One moment where you choose breath instead of anger. One moment where you choose distance instead of chasing. One moment where you choose dignity instead of proving. One moment where you choose your future self over your wounded impulse. That one moment matters. It may look small from the outside, but inside it breaks a chain of old behavior, a chain of regret, a chain of emotional slavery, a chain of giving your power away to every person who knows how to disturb you. You do not need to become perfect to become powerful. You only need to become conscious. Conscious enough to notice. Conscious enough to pause. Conscious enough to choose. Conscious enough to return when you fall. Conscious enough to keep training even when the old version of you still feels familiar. Because the old version will not disappear without testing you. It will return in stressful moments. It will return when you are tired. It will return when someone touches the wound directly. It will return when you feel ignored. It will return when your pride is challenged. It will return when fear tells you that silence means losing. Do not hate the old version. That version protected you the only way it knew how. It reacted because it was afraid. It defended because it felt unseen. It chased because it feared abandonment. It attacked because it felt powerless. It over-explained because it wanted to be understood. It held on because it did not know how to trust itself. But now you are learning another way. You can thank the old version for trying to protect you. And then you can choose not to be led by it anymore. Growth is not rejecting yourself. Growth is guiding yourself. You guide the angry part back to breath. You guide the fearful part back to safety. You guide the insecure part back to self-worth. You guide the wounded part back to patience. You guide the reactive part back to awareness. This is inner leadership. And inner leadership is the foundation of emotional control. Most people try to lead their outer life without leading their inner life. They want success, but their emotions control their consistency. They want respect, but their reactions lower their standard. They want peace, but their attention keeps returning to chaos. They want confidence, but their self-worth rises and falls with other people's behavior. They want growth, but they obey the same triggers. A life cannot rise higher than the emotional patterns controlling it. This is why mastering reaction is not a small lesson. It is a life lesson. It affects how you love, how you speak, how you decide, how you work, how you recover, how you build, how you protect your energy, how you see yourself. A calm person can build a calmer life. A reactive person keeps setting fire to their own direction. Every time you pause, you protect your future. Every time you choose your words carefully, you protect your relationships. Every time you refuse to chase what confuses you, you protect your dignity. Every time you stop feeding an argument that has no purpose, you protect your focus. Every time you choose silence instead of ego, you protect your peace. And peace is not passive. Peace is productive. Peace gives you energy to build. Peace gives you clarity to decide. Peace gives you space to heal. Peace gives you strength to continue. Peace gives you the ability to hear your own inner voice without the noise of every external trigger. When you are constantly reacting, your life becomes loud. Even in silence, your mind remains loud. But when you begin to master your reactions, something changes. The world may still be loud, but you become quieter inside. And in that quietness, you begin to hear what truly matters. Your goals, your values, your health, your growth, your future, your purpose, your relationship with yourself. You begin to realize how much energy you once wasted on temporary emotional storms. How many hours were lost to overthinking? How many days were controlled by someone's tone? How many nights were disturbed by messages that did not deserve your sleep? How many opportunities were weakened because your mind was busy fighting invisible battles? And then you make a decision. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. I cannot keep living like this. I cannot keep giving my peace away. I cannot keep letting temporary emotions decide permanent outcomes. I cannot keep reacting like the old version of me and expecting a new life. That decision is powerful, but it must become practice, because emotional control is not built by one decision. It is built by repeated decisions. Again and again. Pause, breathe, choose, pause, breathe, choose, until the pause becomes natural, until the breath becomes your anchor, until the choice becomes your identity. At first, it will feel difficult. You will feel the pull to react. You will feel the discomfort of silence. You will feel the ego asking for proof. You will feel the old habit asking for permission. But do not confuse discomfort with danger. Sometimes discomfort is simply the feeling of a pattern losing control over you. When you do not send the message you normally would send, it may feel uncomfortable. When you do not defend yourself immediately, it may feel uncomfortable. When you do not chase, it may feel uncomfortable. When you let someone misunderstand you, it may feel uncomfortable. When you walk away from disrespect, it may feel uncomfortable. But discomfort is not always a sign that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is a sign that you are doing something new. The old self feels safe in familiar chaos. The new self feels strange in unfamiliar peace. Give yourself time to adjust to peace. At first, peace may feel boring. It may feel empty. It may feel like something is missing because your nervous system is used to intensity. But peace is not emptiness. Peace is space. Space to breathe. Space to think. Space to grow. Space to build a life that is not constantly interrupted by emotional fires. As you continue practicing, peace will begin to feel like home. Not the loud home of drama. Not the intense home of chasing and reacting. But the quiet home of self-respect. A place inside you where you can return, no matter what happens outside. This inner home is what you are building. Every time you do not react, you place one brick. Every time you choose your standard, you place one brick. Every time you protect your boundary, you place one brick. Every time you let noise pass without carrying it, you place one brick. Every time you return to yourself instead of chasing someone else, you place one brick. One day, you will look back and realize you are living inside a stronger mind. A mind that does not break so quickly. A mind that does not rush to every battle. A mind that does not mistake every emotion for truth. A mind that does not need to be loud to be powerful. A mind that can remain still while the world moves. That is the mind you are training. And it begins now. Not someday. Not when life becomes perfect. Not when people stop testing you. Not when your past stops hurting. Not when every wound is fully healed. Now, in the next trigger, in the next conversation, in the next moment where your body wants to react. That is where the training begins. When someone says something that touches your pride, pause. When someone misunderstands you, pause. When someone's silence makes you anxious, pause. When anger begins writing words in your mind, pause. When fear tells you to control everything, pause. When your ego tells you that silence means weakness, pause. Inside that pause, ask yourself, who do I want to be after this moment? Not just what do I feel? Not just what did they do? Not just how can I win? Ask who do I want to be? Because every reaction is not only a response to a situation. It is a vote for your identity. React with anger again, and you strengthen the identity of someone controlled by anger. Chase again, and you strengthen the identity of someone who abandons themselves for attention. Over-explain again, and you strengthen the identity of someone who needs permission to feel valid. Pause, and you strengthen the identity of someone who has command. Breathe, and you strengthen the identity of someone who can handle discomfort. Choose wisely, and you strengthen the identity of someone who is becoming free. Your identity is built in moments no one sees. It is built when you are alone with the urge, alone with the phone, alone with the thought, alone with the memory, alone with the temptation to return to the old pattern. That is where real transformation happens. Not in public, not in applause, not in words, but in private obedience to the person you are becoming. There will be times when people do not recognize your growth. They may still treat you like the old version. They may still expect the old reaction. They may still push the old buttons. Let that be part of the test. Do not demand immediate recognition. Become consistent enough that your life becomes the evidence. Your calm will speak. Your boundaries will speak. Your distance will speak. Your discipline will speak. Your peace will speak. Your silence will speak. Not everyone will understand. But understanding from everyone is not the goal. Freedom is the goal. To be free from emotional strings. Free from every small trigger. Free from the need to respond instantly. Free from the need to be validated by people who do not know how to value you. Free from the habit of turning pain into reaction. Free from the old belief that you must lose yourself to protect yourself. You do not have to lose yourself anymore. You can protect yourself with calmness. You can protect yourself with clarity. You can protect yourself with boundaries. You can protect yourself with distance. You can protect yourself with silence. You can protect yourself with self-respect. And when you protect yourself this way, you do not create more wounds while trying to defend the old ones. You heal, slowly, quietly, deeply. You begin to trust your own presence again. You begin to feel safe with your emotions because you know they will not automatically destroy your peace. You begin to move through life with less fear of being triggered because you know triggers are training grounds, not prisons. You begin to understand that the world can touch your emotions without owning your choices. This is the final lesson. You may not control what rises inside you first, but you can train what happens next. You may not control the first feeling, but you can control the second action. You may not control every thought, but you can decide which thoughts deserve your belief. You may not control every person, but you can control how much access they have to your energy. You may not control every storm, but you can become the person who does not become the storm. That is the quiet power of not reacting. It is the power to stay with yourself. The power to pause. The power to breathe. The power to choose. The power to protect your peace without becoming cruel. The power to feel deeply without being ruled by feeling. The power to be misunderstood without losing your center. The power to be tested without returning to the old pattern. The power to walk away without hatred. The power to speak without chaos. The power to remain silent without fear. The power to respond from wisdom instead of wound. And as this power grows, your life begins to change. Not because people suddenly become perfect, but because you stop being controlled by their imperfection. Not because emotions disappear, but because emotions no longer hold the authority they once held. Not because every situation becomes peaceful, but because you become a keeper of peace inside yourself. This is not an easy path, but it is a worthy one, because the person who learns not to react learns how to own their life again. They stop living as a mirror of other people's behavior. They stop becoming angry because others are angry. They stop becoming chaotic because others are chaotic. They stop becoming insecure because others are unclear. They stop becoming disrespectful because others are disrespectful. They become rooted. And rooted people do not need the world to be still in order to stand. So the next time life tests you, remember this. You are not required to react. You are not required to prove. You are not required to explain endlessly. You are not required to enter every argument. You are not required to carry every opinion. You are not required to let someone else's lack of control become your own. You have a choice. A quiet choice. A powerful choice. A choice that may not impress the ego, but will protect the soul. Pause. Breathe. Choose. Let the old pattern pass without obeying it. Let the emotion rise without becoming it. Let the noise exist without carrying it. Let the misunderstanding remain without chasing it. Let the trigger knock without opening the door. And in that moment, you will feel something new. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. You will feel your power returning. Not the power to control others, the power to control yourself. And that is the power no one can take from you once you truly begin to build it. Because when you no longer react to everything, you no longer belong to everything. You belong to yourself. And from that place, life becomes clearer. Peace becomes stronger. Confidence becomes quieter. Boundaries become easier. Words become cleaner. Silence becomes safer. And your future stops being shaped by every temporary emotion that passes through you. You become the author of your response. You become the guardian of your peace. You become the person who can stand in the middle of pressure and still remember who they are. That is the quiet power. That is emotional control. That is freedom. And it begins in the next moment before reaction. A small space. A single breath. A choice. Your future is still in your hands. And if this message touched something inside you, let it stay with you today. This is Inner Rise, where every audiobook is created to help you rise from within. Keep growing, keep healing, and keep choosing peace.